For decades, the relationship between the United States and Iran has been defined by mistrust, confrontation, and unresolved conflict. What exists today is not a sudden crisis, but the result of historical decisions, power struggles, and ideological clashes that began long before the modern headlines. In the early 20th century, Iran and the United States were not enemies. The US supported Iran's monarchy, seeing the country as a strategic partner in the Middle East. Iran provided oil, regional stability, and a counterweight to Soviet influence during the Cold War. At this stage, the relationship was built on shared interests rather than shared values. Everything changed in 1979. The Iranian Revolution overthrew the US-backed Shah and replaced the monarchy with an Islamic republic. Soon after, Iranian revolutionaries seized the US embassy in Tehran, holding American diplomats hostage for over a year. From this moment on, trust collapsed and hostility became permanent. The United States responded with economic sanctions, political isolation, and diplomatic pressure. Iran, in return, positioned itself as an opponent of American influence across the Middle East. This period hardened both sides. The US relied on economic power and global alliances. Iran relied on resistance, ideology, and regional influence. Rather than direct war, the conflict evolved into proxy confrontations. Iran expanded its influence through allied groups in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. The US countered by supporting regional allies, maintaining military bases, and enforcing sanctions. Both sides avoided direct confrontation, but tensions never stopped growing. Iran's nuclear program became the most dangerous point of friction. Iran claimed peaceful intentions. The US and its allies feared nuclear weapons. Agreements were made, broken, renegotiated, and abandoned. Each failure increased suspicion and reduced diplomatic space. The United States holds global military reach, economic dominance, and powerful alliances. Its weakness lies in prolonged conflicts and political division. Iran's strength comes from regional influence, strategic patience, and ideological cohesion. Its weakness lies in economic isolation, sanctions, and internal pressure. Today, the relationship stands at a fragile and dangerous balance. Neither side fully trusts diplomacy. Neither side wants open war. But decades of unresolved conflict have made escalation easier and peace harder. This is not a story of sudden aggression. It is the result of history catching up. After the hostage crisis, there was no return to normal. Diplomatic ties were cut. Trust was destroyed. From that moment on, the United States and Iran no longer saw each other as rivals, but as permanent threats. The United States responded with economic sanctions designed to isolate Iran from the global system. Trade was restricted. Assets were frozen. Iran's economy suffered heavily, but instead of collapse, Iran adapted. Sanctions became part of its identity. Resistance replaced cooperation, and hostility became institutional. Unable to confront the US directly, Iran chose another path. It expanded influence through regional allies and armed groups. In Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, Iran built a network of pressure points. This allowed Tehran to challenge American interests without triggering a full-scale war. A slow, calculated strategy, effective, but unstable. The United States answered with military presence, regional alliances, and deterrence. Aircraft carriers, military bases, and defense agreements became permanent features of the Middle East. Washington sought containment, not invasion. But containment requires patience, and patience has limits. The most dangerous escalation came with Iran's nuclear program. Iran insisted on peaceful purposes. The US and its allies saw an existential threat. Agreements were negotiated, suspended, abandoned, and challenged. Each failure increased suspicion. Each breakdown narrowed diplomatic options. The United States holds unmatched military power and global influence, but struggles with long-term conflicts and internal division. Iran possesses strategic patience, regional leverage, and ideological cohesion, but suffers under sanctions, economic pressure, and internal unrest. Today, neither nation openly seeks war, yet neither fully trusts peace. Decades of unresolved conflict have created a fragile balance. One miscalculation away from escalation. This is not a conflict frozen in time. It is one that continues to move quietly, dangerously, and without a clear end. When Donald Trump entered the White House, the rules of engagement changed. Previous administrations believed in containment, pressure mixed with negotiation. Trump rejected that approach entirely. To him, Iran was not a complicated problem. It was a direct threat that had been tolerated for too long. In 2018, the United States withdrew from the nuclear agreement with Iran. The decision sent a clear message. Washington no longer trusted compromise. Sanctions returned stronger than before. Iran's economy was hit hard. Oil exports collapsed. Currency value dropped. For Tehran, this was not diplomacy. It was economic warfare. For Ali Hosseini and the Iranian leadership, Trump represented unpredictability. Not pressure, but instability. Iran responded by escalating slowly, testing missile limits, reducing nuclear compliance, increasing regional activity. The goal was clear: show strength without triggering full war. Trump called it maximum pressure. Iran called it an act of aggression. American forces increased their presence in the region. Iranian-backed groups intensified attacks on U.S. interests. Each move was calculated. Each response was dangerous. This was not diplomacy. This was brinkmanship. In January 2020, the conflict crossed a historic line. The United States killed a top Iranian military commander in a targeted strike. For Iran, this was not just a loss, it was a humiliation. For the world, it was a warning. Direct confrontation was no longer unthinkable. Iran responded with missile attacks on U.S. embassies, measured, symbolic, designed to restore deterrence without starting a war. Both sides stepped back, not because tensions disappeared, but because escalation had reached the edge. This confrontation is not regional. It affects global oil markets, international trade, military alliances. A full-scale war would disrupt energy supplies, destabilize entire regions, and pull global powers into a conflict they do not control. Trump's strategy relied on intimidation and unpredictability. Iran's strategy relied on patience and endurance. Both approaches increased pressure. Neither reduced risk. The result was a fragile balance, held together not by trust, but by fear of consequences. What comes next? Leadership changes, strategies shift, but the damage remains. Sanctions hardened Iran's position. Confrontation reshaped U.S. policy. The question is no longer whether tensions will return, but how far the next escalation will go. Final reflection. When two powers stop believing in compromise, every move becomes a message, and every message becomes a threat. The Trump-Iran confrontation proved one thing clearly. In the modern world, war does not begin with declarations. It begins with decisions that leave no room to step back.